Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to England once again and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, and I would say that this brewery are known both for their IPAs and also for their big imperial stouts as well, but generally speaking, they are just a very solid all-round brewery, and it's always nice to try a few of their new beers when I come back to the motherland of Scotland. Now, the one we're going to try today is a sub-style that I haven't tried from them yet, but I have heard it's a good beer, and based on what I've had from them before, I do have high hopes for this one. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review, we are going to head to a little place called Hebdon Bridge in Yorkshire, kind of between Leeds and Manchester, and we're going to have a look at my fifth beer, or sixth beer maybe, from Vocation Brewery. So this particular beer is called the Triple Vision. It comes in at 10% ABV, and this one is a triple IPA, and I believe it is a New England triple IPA, this one, although I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, this beer is available through Tesco stores, and that's where I got mine, in my local Tesco, and I think it cost me about £4.50 or something like that. I'm sure it was about £4.50, so that's somewhere in the region of like €5. Yeah, about €5, €5.50, something like that. So that would be about 55 Swedish kroner, and then somewhere in the region of, about $6.50 a can, which isn't bad when you consider it's a big 10% triple IPA. But yeah, Vocation have a history of releasing solid beers through the supermarket, so I don't see any reason why that can't carry on with this one. But yeah, looking forward to this. Let's crack on with the review and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Vocation Brewery, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that happens to take your fancy. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am at home in the motherland of Scotland. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Vocation Brewery then. So Vocation Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Hebdon Bridge, which is about halfway between Manchester and Leeds in Yorkshire in the north of England. But the brewery itself was founded back in April of 2015 by John Hickling. He had worked in IT within the banking sector for a number of years and homebrewed on the side as a hobby. But he grew tired of his work and he decided that he wanted to run a brewery, so he went to train at Brew Lab in Sunderland and worked for a period of time at Jarrow Brewery as well. So he bought the equipment from Jarrow and then founded Blue Monkey Brewery in Ilkeston with his uncle back in 2008, and he successfully grew the brewery over the following years. But he sold Blue Monkey in 2007 and then founded Vocation because he felt that he needed a new brewery project. But the new brewery opened in Hebdon Bridge in Yorkshire in 2015. They got a new facility up and running. And they started off with a 15-barrel brew plant, and they've grown their fermentation capacity over the last few years. They opened their first tap room in Hebdon Bridge in 2018, and they opened another bar in Leeds in 2019. As I said, over the last few years, they've just been developing new beers. They've got some of their beers into the supermarkets, and as of October 2021, when I'm filming this particular review for you, these guys have produced in the region of 150 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. So yeah, that is all I can really tell you about the brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that Vocation have done. But yeah, let's crack on then and see how we go with this beer. So as I said to you earlier, this one is a triple IPA, going by the fact that it's got wheat and oats listed in the malt base and the ingredients. I'm going to say that this will be a New England hazy IPA. The label on this is on a bit squint, incidentally. I think the machine had a bit of a fit with this, but the label is on a bit squint. That's why it seems as if it's leaning to the side a wee bit. But yeah, they say this one is a special edition, the Triple Vision Triple IPA. It says on the side here, some say there's three's a crowd, but in our opinion, it's the more murkier and lovers of the bold, followers of the unconventional. This triple IPA has got you in its sights. But yeah, it's hopped with Calypso, Columbus and Citra. All three of these hops are American, incidentally. And if memory serves me correctly, they all come in the 14% alpha acid region. Citra's going to give you a lovely big kind of mango-y quality with a lot of little citrus elements as well, you know, quite a bit of lemon lime and a few other subtleties. Columbus is a big bittering hop, quite a big spicy floral aromatic component from that normally. And Calypso is one that we haven't come across all that often, so I looked out my notes that I have on Calypso. So this, again, an American high alpha acid hop. It's derived from nugget, and it's supposed to give you oranges and tropical fruits with a bit of pear and floral character as well, but it gives you, again, about 14% alpha acid. So yeah, interesting to see how those orangey and pear notes come out in this. We'll need to keep an eye out for those. But yeah, as you can see, 440ml can, very nicely presented as you always get from Vocation. And as we said earlier, these guys do have a history of doing some very nice high alcohol beers. But yeah, let's crack this guy open and we'll see how we go. 10% New England Triple IPA with Citra, Columbus and Calypso. There we are, got it. Yeah, the last beer I had from Vocation, I think, was a double IPA, if memory serves me correctly, and it was pretty solidly done. So hopefully this one follows on in the same vein, but definitely cool to see Vocation releasing a few more beers through Untappd. But yeah, it's not through Untappd, through Tesco. There's a wee bit of sediment in this one, but that might be the fridge, because I think my fridge might be set to just be a little bit cold, but hopefully it's not been sitting in the supermarket warehouses for too long. That's always one of the risks that you have with some of these supermarket beers, unfortunately, is that they can sit around for a bit too long. But yeah, anyway, as you can see, and as you would expect, it's poured a lovely, very kind of bright, I would say, if we put my hand behind this one to let you see the colour of this beer, I would say that this is poured a rich, kind of light, ambery leaning colour, this one, but it has, of course, got that hazy character that you expect of the New England IPA. But before the head on this one disappears, it poured with about a half finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of cream coloured head. Just let me bring that up to the camera there so you can see it. I would say it's a kind of cream coloured head, one rather than a perfect white head. You can see a couple of the little bits of sediment just floating around in the bottom of the glass there. Don't know if the camera's going to zoom in and get that, but there you go. But yeah, you can see these just kind of floating about. But yeah, as I said, in terms of colour, I would describe this one as being a sort of mixed tropical fruit juice colour, a kind of amber leaning colour, if you like. So remember, the colour of these beers depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. That determines the magnitude of your colour. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. A triple IPA like this is probably going to have a wort boil of about 90 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I'm not 100% sure on that. But any barrel aging that you do and any adjuncts that you put in will also affect the colour of this beer, but that's not, those two variables are not something that you commonly have to care about when it comes to you know, triple IPAs and stuff like this. Normally it's just the type of malts and the length of the wort boil, but this one certainly looks the part. Now, the level of haziness in this one it's not the haziest of triple IPAs that I've come across, and the haze doesn't particularly matter, to be honest with you, but the haze is determined by the yeast, the oat content and the wheat content. That can vary from brewery to brewery and even recipe to recipe. So yeah, that's not something we have to care too much about, but this certainly isn't the soupiest and gloopiest of triple IPAs that we've come across in the past. So yeah, that's something that is worth bearing in mind. But in terms of appearance, there's not too much. There's nothing really surprising about this one, I guess we should say. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we go on. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the appearance of this beer. That does smell quite nice, actually. So first impression of this is that it's quite a big oily and citrusy New England triple IPA. It actually has quite a bit of sweetness to it as well. I would say, yeah, the malt base is actually kind of quite sticky and quite sweet, and the green component is quite floral. That's what I'm getting. A good bit of floral character, a nice kind of sweet, sticky malt base, and some nice oily fruits out of this one. So first impressions of the aroma are pretty good, I would say, but let's kind of break it down and see what we're getting exactly. Yeah, sugar up a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of interesting. But yeah, so as I've told you in previous reviews, I think New England IPAs can go in 6 different directions, but quite often they'll display a few of these characteristics. So you get the sort of farmhousey leaning ones, which have got, you know, kind of woody and grainy character and stuff. Then you've also got the rye leaning, more grainy bready ones. You have the wheaty and bitey ones, the oaty and creamy ones. You also have the barley malt leaning bready ones, and then you can get ones that are quite sweet as well. But as I say, quite often they'll display a few of these characteristics. What I'm getting out of this one is wheaty bitiness, sweetness, and I think those would be the 2 most prominent ones, to be honest with you. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, you can certainly get a kind of soft, you do get quite a soft white bready character out of this one, because it's a triple IPA, it does come across as quite dense. You get some wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose, and you can also smell a bit of that nice kind of creamy oat in there. Now, as I've said in other reviews as well, when it comes to triple IPAs, I'm still to be kind of convinced for the need of these. I quite like, you know, double for me, I think does it. If I want something that's, you know, 10% strength, I'd rather probably go to the dark end of the spectrum and have like a big doppelbock or a quadruple, or, you know, a stout or something like this. But I do enjoy trying the triple IPAs every so often. I do like having them as tasters, but a 440ml can is a bit much for me, so that's why I usually share these ones with my dad or with friends or whatever. But the malty side of this beer is quite big and quite thick for sure. You can smell it's got a big bit of sweetness and a big bit of booziness to it as well. So yeah, white bready base. You can smell the wheat just kind of thickening out the whole thing there, and a bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose. Then a big oaty creaminess to the beer, but there's a lot of brown sugar in this one. I do actually get a little bit of a straight up caramel out of it, but I also get those kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy type notes that you can often get in the New England IPAs as well. There's maybe a wee teeny hint of biscuit actually in this one, but not too much. I think the sweetness actually comes across as quite oily and sort of syrupy in a sense. So yeah, more like a kind of Werther's Original and slightly caramelly type vibe. But when it's 10% ABV, you would expect a wee bit of that brown sugar to cover up the booziness. Actually, quite often these brown sugary notes correspond to booziness. So yeah, the malty side of the aroma, this one isn't surprising, but it does come across as quite nicely done. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, on the hoppy side of the aroma, what can we say about that? Green component is pretty big and pretty pungent actually. That is most likely due to the Columbus. Now remember, New England IPAs tend to use late addition hops and dry hopping. West Coast IPAs also have early addition hopping, which is the one that gives you most of your bitterness. As you go through the boil, you've got a trade-off from bitterness towards flavour and aroma, and then dry hopping is totally aroma, actually. So quite a lot of New England IPAs add the majority of their hops in the last half hour to give you a bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Whereas West Coast IPAs have ones added straight away to give you that big bitterness normally. But this one has quite a pungent green component to it, and I think that, as I say, is down to Columbus. So there's a wee bit of earthiness in there for sure, but that takes a backseat to the big sort of, I don't know if you could quite describe it as dank. It doesn't seem deep enough to be dank, but it's got quite a big sort of spicy and bright floral aromaticity to it. So I suspect that in this beer, Columbus has been used as a sort of bittering hop to give you that big sort of floral spiciness and that deep that sort of deep but still bright floral aromaticity out of this one. So you're getting that straight away. There is a bit of a kind of fresh, wetly cut grass to this one. Yeah, some nice fresh, wetly cut grass to the beer. And it has got a wee touch of zestiness to it as well, which I think is most likely to be Citra's doing. Citra's the one that's going to give you a lot of the zest in this beer. I can't remember what Columbus is like on the grassy side of things actually, but Columbus isn't the sort of hop that you would have as a single hopped beer. That just wouldn't work, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, the green component of this one is quite nice and quite bright. But on the fruity side of things, it is kind of what you'd expect. For me, there's a nice big oily mango to it. You do get some of that mango, and you can smell. I do get with the mango, I do also get the kind of oily sort of peary notes, but underneath that there's like apricot and kind of sultana type qualities coming out of this one. Dried white green grapes, you know. That's what I get out of this one. So mango, apricot, sultana for sure, but I do get quite a big orangey note out of this one. For me, if I was smelling this blind, I would probably be tempted to say that it had something like, you know, Amarillo in it, because it has the Calypso showing quite a zesty character in my mind, so it really does remind me of Amarillo, but I can certainly get the pear, for which is supposed to come from the Calypso as well. But you do get quite a wee bit of that lemon limey zestiness at the nose, on the nose too, which is most likely to be the Citra. You can smell a wee bit of the lime in particular, I would say. So yeah, bit of mango, bit of like a kind of apricot-y note to the beer, and a wee bit of sultana too. But you also have that orangey component too, which I think is great. So lovely smelling beer, this, I have to say. A little bit worried that there's so much sediment, but I'm not sure whether it's just my fridge or whatever. But I've had this for one or two of the Vocation beers, but you know, you're going to get this when it comes to supermarket beers. But there's no sediment at the bottom of this one. There's no other sort of, it's not making the beer any hazier now that we've put it all in, but I think it is about time that we can taste this one then. So as I always say, take a bit of time to ponder over the aroma, but let's go for it. This one is the Triple Vision New England Triple IPA from Vocation Brewery in Hebdon Bridge in Yorkshire in the north of England, near Leeds and Manchester. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, and cheers. Yeah, it's pretty solid. It is pretty solid. I'm still not. I'm still to be. I'm still to feel as blown away by a beer from Vocation as I was with the either the Imperial Kirsche at the dark end of the spectrum, or I think it was the Love and Hate, if I remember rightly, the one with the orange writing on it. Love and Hate's a beautiful IPA, and for a supermarket IPA, it's just spot on, you know. This one, it's solid enough, but it feels a little bit boozy, and I do wonder, there might be a wee teeny hint of like oxidation in this, but not 100% sure. So, but as far as I know, I think I got this beer just about a week after it was released, and it's been in the fridge, so I don't know how long it's been sitting in the, I don't know how long it's been like sitting in the warehouse or whatever, or if it took an extra long time to get it up here to Scotland because of the whole driver shortage thing, which is just, you know, a farce. But that's another thing. It does feel, maybe there's a teeny little hint of that in it, but otherwise it feels pretty solid. But it's a big boozy, oily beer, this one. I think that's fair to say. But when it's a 10% triple New England IPA, I feel that I'm kind of stating the obvious, to be honest with you on that point. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour and see how we go. So, yeah. Where do we start then with this? It's kind of what you'd expect, actually. I mean, from the aroma, this is one of these beers that translates the flavour out of the aroma quite well. So straight away across that middle and back third of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of bread crusty base that's in there. On top of that, you can feel the kind of thick, white bread for sure. So you can feel that on top of the bread crust, nice thick white bread from the barley malt in there, and you can feel the wheat making that even thicker actually. So you can feel the wheaty layer just thickening out everything that little bit more. And those layers go all the way. Those three layers I'm talking about, the bread crust, the barley malt white bread, and then the wheaty layer, those go all the way to the back of the palate there. But let's focus on the middle third of your palate for the moment. So On top of that wheaty layer, you get that nice kind of oaty. You can feel that nice kind of oaty creamy note there, and that goes down. It kind of concentrates on the middle line of your tongue and just spreads out to the side a little bit, and you get that slightly drier oaty note coming out of this one, which is interesting. So yeah, that side of the beer for me is quite. That side of the beer for me is quite nice, but on top of that oaty layer, you get a kind of quite oily brown sugary component to this one. You can feel that sort of Werther's Original note to it. So yeah, on top of the how do you say? On top of the that kind of oaty there, you can feel a nice kind of circle there, and you can feel that sort of Werther's Original base to it. But then in the very dead centre of your palate, you get quite a concentrated. Caramelly quality to this one. That brown sugar, and you can feel the booze. I would say that this beer isn't actually the best at covering up its booze, but like I say, I'm a bit unsure as to how long this beer has sat for. So maybe it's a bit unfair to judge the beer fully in this state actually, but yeah, you do get quite a bit of just a boozy, that concentrated brown sugary boozy sort of thing in the middle of your palate. The Werther's Original sits underneath, and under that you've got the oats. But as you push out towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a biscuity character out of this one for sure. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about the middle third of the palate, and it does start to lean towards the more kind of bread crusty sort of thing the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah. So on the how would you say, on the back third of the palate then, brain fart there, on the back third of your palate then, the border region between the middle and back third of your palate, you get a little bit of bready build up in there, a little bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing. Then the base of that back third of your palate, you've got the kind of bread crusty grainy note in there. On top of that, you get soft white bread. Then you get that nice you get a nice bit of that kind of wheaty bitiness there. You can feel that wheaty layer, and it gets really kind of wheaty and bitey the further into the further back on the palate that you go. But on top of that, you can feel the oats do creep in a little bit, but on top of that, you get the more yeasty component of the beer, and it's actually quite a kind of thick, big, doughy beast of a thing that you get sitting on top of that. So you can feel that big, thick, doughy, yeasty kind of element sitting in there. But you can really feel the booze in this beer the further into the aftertaste you go. You can feel that, but when it's a 10% triple IPA, that's not really a surprise, to be quite honest with you. But yeah, I think that covers the malty, yeasty side of the beer. So let's focus on the hoppy part then. So back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in there, and that'll be the Columbus, of course. But as you move further forward, it does get a little touch herbal, and then as you push forward towards the front corners of the palate, it definitely develops a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity, and it does have a bit of spiciness and brightness to it. I wouldn't say it's too dank a floral aromaticity, but it does develop a nice big kind of spiciness, which I certainly enjoy. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter, and more sort of grassy, I would say. So I can appreciate that about this one too. But yeah, I wouldn't. The green component isn't too as pungent as I thought it was going to be from the aroma, but it certainly has quite a little bit of it. But then when it's triple IPA and it's 10%, you do expect a bit more malty presence to the beer, of course, which is what you get. So yeah, not 100% sure how to assess that in a sense, but green component certainly is there. It's not the most bitter of beers as well, we'll say that, but we'll come to the IBUs a little bit later on. Let's focus on the front third of your palate then and see how we go. But yeah, the front third of your palate then, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a bready build up there. And then the base of the front third of your palate is a little bit of bread crust and then a white bready kind of thing. And on top of that, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer from the hops. So yeah, towards the back of that front third of your palate then, you do get a teeny little hint of a kind of passion fruit, like that pungent passion fruit. That's the Citra. As you move further forward from that, you've got the oily, mangoey notes coming out as well. And I think, underneath all that, there is a wee bit of like a sultana type thing. And I do get the hints of pear in there as well. The oily, it's kind of interesting because whenever I get oily, peary flavours and like lagers and things, I always find they come out a bit further forward. But with this one, you can feel them sitting about halfway into that back half, but they do come into the front half of that front third of your palate as well, which is interesting. So yeah, there's a wee bit of like a sultana, apricot-y kind of flavour underneath the big oily mangoes and the passion fruit, and then as you push further forward, you can feel you get a little bit of a kind of dry fruity note there. So you get a bit of an oily pear, and you get a nice kind of orangey, oily character sitting on top of that as well. But as you just get to that front tip of the tongue, you can feel there is a wee bit of a sort of limey, zesty note, and again, that's going to be Citra that contributes that. So yeah, I like that about this beer for sure. The way that goes together in this one is pretty nice. The fruity side of the beer is quite oily, and you've got a good balance between a kind of tropical and more citrusy, oily sort of thing, and a wee bit of dryness too. So overall, this is a pretty damn solid beer, in my opinion, on the fruity side of things. So yeah, I think it's an interesting one. This, I think it's not in its best condition, and I think that's one of the downsides of supermarket beers. I think they really need to have a fridge in the aisle for these supermarket beers and actually keep them in proper condition if they're going to do the craft beers. But that's hopefully something that will come later on. The supermarket, the Tesco beer phenomenon, if you like, is still relatively new. It's only been about a year and a half or something, so hopefully they'll add a fridge into the aisle for these kind of things, because I think this one has suffered a wee bit from being kept a bit too long at the wrong temperature. So yeah, I think that summarises it quite well. But this is a big oily, boozy triple IPA, and if you're going for a triple IPA, that's what you expect. But yeah, let's round off this review with the mouthfeel then. So when it comes to the mouthfeel, I'd say it's it's top end to mid-bodied. The carbonation is pretty smooth on it. It is a big oily beer, as I've said, and you would kind of expect that, although with a triple IPA you might expect a wee bit more kind of creaminess and things from it, but that again varies from brewery to brewery. In terms of hoppy bitterness and stuff like that, I think this one is maybe about 50-60 IBUs, somewhere in that region, so it does have a wee bit of IBU to it. The malt base has a bit of graininess underneath, but a big kind of smoothness in the middle and a bit of that sweetness on top. But it's quite a boozy sweetness you get out of this one. Then the fruity side of the beer is quite oily, but you've got a bit of balance between the kind of fruity oily side, the more citrusy fruity side of things, and the tropical side as well. But for me, the fruitiness is the highlight of the beer. The green component is quite well done, but I think the kind of malty side of the beer might well have oxidised a little bit. But I would say the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, it gets a little bit more bitter actually. So yeah, interesting stuff. So as I say, still not convinced of the need for triple IPAs in my opinion. I think a double, if you can get a well done double, for me that's probably as far as you need to go. But always interesting to try triple, so I'm going to go away and share the rest of this with my dad and see what he thinks. But yeah, we can leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and let me know what your favourite beers are from Vocation Brewery as well. We will return to these guys at some point soon. Check out my social media, check out their social media. But this one was the Triple Vision, a 10% New England triple IPA from Vocation Brewery in Hebdon Bridge in Yorkshire in England. Until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll see you guys later. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.